Thank you. Hello, Louisiana. Thank you for having me. I want to start off with a quote that when I first saw it disturbed me, but I think it disturbed me because it's 100% true. The quote is that the HR function matters, but the HR profession does not. Does that upset any of you? That upsets a couple of you? Someone just said it's true. You want to know who said that? Johnny Taylor, our SHRM CEO, last week at New York City SHRM conference. I don't say that because I don't like Johnny. I think he's bold to say that because there's truth in it. For 10 years, HR has been pounding on the door to get a, quote, seat at the table. And yet, when I talk to business executives, the one thing I still hear is, yeah, I let them at the table, but they don't got anything to say. Even worse, I think, was a client, an HR director, who recently said to me, you know, Ed, I go to the board meetings, and we sit there and we talk about stuff, and I report on my numbers, and you know what? Those owners sitting around the table, they don't give a fill in the blank. Okay? And my response to her was, well, what is it that they don't give a blank about? And she said, well, the numbers I'm reporting. I said, give me an example. And she starts giving me examples. I tell them what our turnover is. I tell them what our time to hire is. I tell them about the training initiatives that we're doing. And I said, well, no wonder they don't care. If I'm a business owner, I don't care about any of that stuff. I really don't. Because that's HR's job, is to worry about that stuff. If you want to get my attention as a business owner, then you better tell me how time to fill is impacting my business. What's the turnover costing me? I don't care what the percent is. What's it costing me? And who's leaving? Is it our bottom 10% of performers? Good, hold the door open for them. If it's our top performers, our high potentials, then we better figure out what's going on that they're leaving. This is the challenge that we face as HR professionals today. I'm going to test your limits a little bit today. I'm a bit of a contrarian. When we talk about HR strategy, I hope to challenge the way you think about what it means to be strategic in your thinking and to be strategic in how you plan your HR functions activities. I'll tell you some horror stories and some success stories along the way, and I'm certainly open to your feedback. So let's jump in because I know we're tight on time for the amount of content that we're going to deliver today. So there's a couple things that I want to cover. I am going to start off covering the reasons why HR plans fail. Maybe. Maybe. Let's try it again. There we go. And the reason I like to start with why HR plans fail is that so often you come to these sessions, I've been in the seats too, right? And they tell you all the good things that are happening, and then at the end of the presentation they say, oh, if you don't do this right, this is what's going to happen. I'd rather get that out of the way first. Let's talk about why maybe plans that you've put in place haven't worked, or maybe you've heard other people talking about they've got these great strategic plans in HR and they don't work. So let's get that out of the way. And then we're obviously going to get into how do we write a good HR strategic plan? What are the things that we need to consider? And how do we link that back to where the organization is headed? So I'm also open to going down a path that you'd like to go down, because this session is for you, it's not for me. So if you want to take a deeper dive into one of the things we're talking about, please let's do that. All right? So let's talk about these reasons that plans fail. It should not be a surprise to anyone in this room that the number one reason that plans fail is communication. If you think about HR, you think about business in general. Our job is to communicate, and yet we don't do it. A client that I'm working with on this very topic right now complains to me regularly how they track how many people open up the various communications from HR. This is an 800-person entity spread out across a dozen different, they call their locations campuses. Okay? And I say, well, what's your open rate? She goes, sometimes it's 30% on a good day. I said, well, give me some examples of the things that you are sending out. Excuse me. And I kid you not, emails that are 2 pages long. Do you guys read emails that are 2 pages long when they hit your inbox? So why do we send them? I spent some time talking to the workforce. I said, why don't you guys open all the communications from HR? Because I was hearing that they don't feel like they're communicated with enough. And they said, Ed, did you ever see some of the communications we get from HR? They're 2 pages long. I don't have time to read that. I don't want to read that. And it's not 2 pages of bullet points. It's 2 pages of text, paragraphs. Communication is a problem. Another client, this one an international company, whose products you probably have in your homes, has a communication problem. We think sometimes communication problems are just at the little mom and pop shops or mid-sized companies, that sort of thing. This organization is German-owned, and I'm from Pennsylvania. They have a facility up home, and the plant manager would get up, she'd give her town hall speeches on a monthly basis. And yet their employee opinion survey results would just keep tanking year after year after year. And so we were in there doing some debriefing and some focus groups to try and figure out why that was. And communication kept coming up, and I couldn't figure out what the problem was, because after all, they had these town hall meetings. In their cafeteria, they had a whole bulletin board of stuff up on the walls. They had the emails, they had newsletters, I mean, you name it. And I was beginning to think that maybe they were over-communicating. Maybe it was just overload, right? When one of the outbreak sessions, gentleman says, Ed, I'd like us to go on a little field trip down to the cafeteria. Let's go down there and look at that wall. So we did. And he asked me what I saw. And I said, well, you know, I see all the benefit stuff up there, and I see stuff about EAP, and I see financials are posted up there. They were kind of sort of open book. I said, so what are you getting at? He says, take a closer look at the financials. So I did. I actually walked over and looked at the financials, and that was when I had my aha moment. But I didn't say anything right then. I waited till the next town hall meeting. And I waited to hear what the plant manager was going to say. And she said what I was afraid she was going to say that confirmed what was on that sheet. When they talked about their financial position, and the clue here is they're German-owned, they reported everything in euros. Now, we can giggle, we can laugh and say, what the heck's the matter with these people? And that's exactly what I said to the plant manager. What is the matter with you? Excel does a nice little currency converter. All you do is plug in the exchange rates. It'll do it for you. And she says, well, if we're up €1 million, people got to know that's good. And I said, well, sure they know it's good, but they don't know how good. If it's not that good, I don't know. You tell me I'm up $1 million, I know that's a good thing. Simple thing, multinational company not communicating well. And so I'd ask you to think about how you're communicating out of your HR function right now. What methods are you using? Are you using terms the employees can understand and appreciate based on their job? If I'm a widget maker, and you get up and you tell me that we're up $1 million in revenue, I say, woohoo! And then I say, what's in it for me? Well, what do I have to do? If you tell me that I've got to make 10 more widgets a day to help get that extra million to an extra 2 million, I mean, those are the things I need to know about. Sales needs to know what market we want to go into, and R&D, what new products. I mean, when we communicate new things in HR, there has to be context around it. And if we can't put it in the right context for the people that are receiving the communication, it's going to fail every time. I mean, you guys have all heard the story about you can have the Cadillac of benefit plans and not communicate, and people will gripe all day about it. But you buy some, falling apart junker of a plan, communicate the heck out of it, people think they got it made. That's how powerful communication is. We know this, and yet why don't we communicate better as HR people? What gets in our way? People get in our way, okay? If they just stop knocking on the door, right? Okay? It's a time issue. Why else? Politics. Afraid to put something in print that could come back to haunt you, perhaps. Oftentimes I'll hear, well, Ed, it's so much easier to send one email to everybody than just hit send. And it is easy. And that's the method that will get you 30% opens on a good day. So let's think about how we communicate differently. We're going to keep coming back to communication. It's that critical. That's why it's my number one reason that the plans that we're going to put in place today fail. Okay? Second thing, leadership. So oftentimes when I review an organization's strategic plan, it's good. It's in a nice binder. The leaders all went off to the local golf resort, or maybe not so local. Maybe they went off to Vegas for the weekend, and they came back with shiny binders of strategic plans. And there's all kinds of tactical implementation strategies in there. All that stuff's in there. And nothing ever happens with that plan because no one gets the stuff delegated to them. No one is given ownership to take over the pieces of the plan based on their areas of responsibility. And so as leaders in our organization, we have to be willing to let go. I believe that HR as a profession, yes, I'm including myself, I'm not talking at you folks, I'm an HR guy too. I believe we are control freaks at heart. And in some areas we have to be. You know, when it comes to compliance and harassment prevention, I mean, all those things, we got to kind of be control freaks. But when it comes to communication and now planning and the way we exhibit leadership, we can't be leaders if we're not willing to delegate out responsibility. And some of you are saying, well, how many of you are a one-person HR shop? And you're probably sitting there going, that's great, Ed, but I got no one to delegate to. Who says that HR plans have to be implemented by HR? They don't. In fact, I'm going to argue today that the bulk of your plans should get implemented by people outside of the HR function. The bulk of them. If you're doing your strategic planning properly. Okay? And I'll hold further comment until we get to some of those pieces. Okay? But we've got to, if we want to be leaders, true leaders delegate. Look at any leader that you respect, whether it be in business, religion, politics, anywhere. I guarantee you one of the skills that they exhibit is their ability to surround themselves with good people and challenge them to do good things for them. They're able to take the step back to look on the bigger picture things. I think it's even more critical in smaller HR functions that we have that skill set. Third reason plans fail. We have big ideas, but we got no plans on how to get there. Now, I have attempted numerous times to see if this picture is photoshopped or real. Can't figure it out. I hope it's not real. I really do, because that's a massive, massive problem. But think about what's going on in your line of work that's causing the bridge to not meet up in the center of the ocean. Guarantee you some of it comes back to communication that we started with. One side's not talking to the other, one department's not talking to the other, one facility's not talking to the other, whatever it happens to be. I talk to business owners on a regular basis that are frustrated with their HR departments because they feel like they're not good planners. In fact, a CEO I was talking with just last week let his HR person go because he was trying to get the gentleman to be more strategic. This guy has 15 years experience. He's been around the block. And the owner, or I shouldn't say owner, the CEO's final straw was when the HR manager said to him, I don't believe that my time is well spent planning. And I said, you should have fired him. If we don't take the time to plan in HR, then we are destined for failure. And I'm sure, again, you're thinking, well, the knocks on the door and the phone's ringing and the emails. We're going to talk about all that. There's got to be a time and place where we say, enough. I need my hour to plan today. I need my hour this month to plan, whatever it is. Okay? And we'll talk about how to get that today, too. Okay, fourth reason is our good friend Michael Scott, okay? Nice guy, not a very good manager though, right? Why was he not a good manager?
Politically incorrect.
Well, he's politically incorrect, but that's what made him fun, right? Let's forget all the hijinks he got into. What made him a truly ineffective manager?
Didn't like HR.
Okay, he didn't like HR. Toby's not a likable guy. Let's be honest, he's not. And you know, we laugh about poor Toby, but I want you to think for a moment about HR's portrayal in the media. Toby is the poster child for how our profession is portrayed in the media. And we have to ask ourselves why that is. There's a grain of truth in everything. So he didn't like Toby. I wouldn't like Toby either. Why else was he not a good manager?
Avoids conflict.
Okay, he avoids conflict. Did he ever really know what was going on in that office? No, never. He was too worried about whatever party he was going to plan, or the girl he was chasing, or whatever happened to be, you know, that he was getting into, right? He was passive. He had no idea that Dwight is setting the office on fire to prove a point, and that Jim is putting Dwight's stapler in the Jell-O mold. And I mean, he had no idea any of this stuff was going on. And yes, I get it, it was a sitcom. But the reality is, you have managers like this that don't know what's going on in their own functions. And you say, well, gee, Ed, this is an HR strategy session. What does this got to do with HR strategy? Those are some of the managers that need to be implementing our strategic plans. And so one of the things we're going to look at is, what do we do about professional development for our managers as part of our strategic plan? Final reason that plans fail is personal ownership. People that, if we said one of the reasons plans fail is that there's no delegation. This is the cousin to that. It's, well, we've delegated, but now the person doesn't take ownership of it. And 90% of the time, when the person doesn't take ownership, it's simply because there's nothing in it for them. Do you guys know what percentage raise, or merit increase, whatever you want to call it takes to get someone to change their behavior? What's that?
There is no percentage.
There is actually. There is actually a percentage that will get someone, not that you've seen, right? Because what's the average percent you've seen?
Well, I mean 3, but we've had people
2,
get at
3.
least like 20.
Okay, 20%. That's probably like a bonus kind of scenario or a promotion. Okay. The studies show it's 7%. That it takes a 7% change in a person's base pay to get them to change their behavior. Now, I'm not saying that changed behavior is sustained, but it takes 7% to even get their attention. Now, that's a topic for another day. I'm not going to stand up here and lecture you that you should all start giving 7% increases across the board. That's another topic for how we reward our people. But I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about what the employment relationship is all about. Can I pick on you, LaMonica? So LaMonica comes into my office and she interviews. And I like her. She's got every trait I'm looking for. And I say, LaMonica, in exchange for your talent, I'd like to pay you $70,000 a year. You're going to work 40 hours a week. Here's the benefit package I'm going to give you. Can you have a what? A country? Oh, 100? Well, we can negotiate. I thought she was asking for a country. I'm like, dang, this girl, she's aggressive, right? You know, okay. You guys do things differently down here in Louisiana, clearly. But ultimately what happens after the negotiation? We shake hands, right? And we say, welcome aboard. We've now had an exchange, have we not? She has agreed to bring her talents to the table for me in exchange for a set of rewards. So let's fast forward a year, because I'm a great hiring manager. She smoked it this year. Blew away her goals. You're getting 3% and a handshake. Thank you. She's a superstar. I just gave her 3%. She wanted 100. I gave it to her. What's 3% of 100? Come on, I'm a simple guy. It's $3 grand, right? Is she getting $3 grand? No, because Uncle Sam's going to get his share, and her local parish down here is going to get their share, and the state's going to get its share, right? So that's going to get whittled down. So let's just say she gets, we'll be generous, say it's $2,500 that she gets, okay? And now she gets paid every other week. I'm not going to ask you to do that math, but think about that for a minute. 26, okay, so it's $100 a week, right? And we wonder why her behavior's not going to change. She's thinking, wait a minute, I just killed it for you. And you gave me $100. Well, actually, it's only $50 a week. $100 every other, right? Sooner or later, that balance that we struck when she came in for her interview gets out of whack. Because next year, what am I doing since she knocked her goals out of the park?
You're giving her more.
I'm going to stretch her, right? Stretch goals, yes! I'm going to give her stretch goals because I want to keep her challenged. Sooner or later, the challenge is not going to be enough. The scales are out of balance. And she's going to start to say, what's in it for me? That comes back to the motivation. Do our people see what's in it for them to go after our goals? And again, any one of these topics we could do a whole breakout session on, but I'm just trying to get you to think about why our plans are failing. Because we're doing this very thing. We're giving people 2%, stretching their goals and saying, go get them, Tiger. And they're going, oh, well, okay, great, here we go again. So we have to think differently about how we reward our people, how we motivate their behaviors to get them to buy in and work on the things that are going to impact our business. Now let's talk a little bit about what our most important asset is. You guys want to answer this question?
People.
Our people. Okay, you better say that. You're HR people after all. Okay. I would go so far as to say, and I hear arguments sometimes from outside the HR function. People aren't an asset. Okay. Human resources? No, they're not resources either. They're people. Like, okay, now we're getting into semantics. The reality is, I'm willing to bet, do any of you have a budget, a company budget, where less than 30% of it is represented by people-related costs? I would think not. Usually that's about the bare minimum. Okay, it's 30% of our total, what we spend a year as a company. I had a talk I was given one time, someone said, Ed, ours is 80%. 80% of our cost is people cost. Now think about the size of your company. However many $1 million you're doing a year in business. And just think about what's 30% of that. Or what's 80% of that? And you're probably sitting there, if you've done that calculation, I see some of you typing out, you're probably thinking, dang, I need a raise because I'm managing a huge chunk of the pie. And you're darn right. You are managing a huge chunk of the pie. And so what I ask you to consider as we turn the corner and start talking specifically about strategic planning is, what is your finance function's planning tool? What do they use to plan? Budget, right? They put a budget together and they manage against that budget. What does your operations group manage against? Okay, usually like a production, maybe some quality standards in there, some safety standards perhaps. We can go down through every department that you have in your organizations. And they have things that they measure against. I'm going to ask you to think about that dollar number that many of you wrote down. That's a percentage of your annual revenues that you're responsible for. And I want you to think about, as we dissect what needs to be in your strategic plan, how much financially that's impacting the company's bottom line if you do it correctly. Okay? So when we think about our people, we start having to think about now what about our people impacts where the company is headed. So our job as HR people is to look at the company's strategic plan and say, how do we link HR up to that? What are the things that are most critical to us? Now let me ask you, how many of your companies have a strategic plan? Whether it's formal, written, or not. Okay, keep your hands up so I can see. Okay. Of those companies, keep them up. I know it's the end of the day, right? Keep them up. So, of those of you that know you have a plan, how many of you have seen it? Okay, about a third of the hands went down. How many of you had a hand in what's in it? More hands went down. It's only a handful. You guys scoffed at me. You may put your hands down. You scoffed at me at the beginning when I gave you that quote. Some of you actually went, right there are the results. That's what our businesses are telling us. I just recently interviewed, I'm working on a book right now, interviewed a CEO about his organization. He's grown it to about $12.5, $15 million right now from scratch. Has about 60, 70 employees right now. No HR function. He's at the cusp of, he probably should have at least an admin level person, right? And he says, Ed, I will not have an HR person under my roof. I said, tell me about that. He said, and he starts to relay to me this story about his previous employer. And he said, Ed, all that HR function did was say no. No matter what we asked, they said no. And I said, well, what were you asking? He gave me some examples. I said, well, probably shouldn't have been doing that. He says, I know, but you know what? I don't want to hear no. I want to hear, well, you really can't do that. Let's do it this way. Well, there's a novel idea. Instead of just saying no to the CEO, let's give them the idea and say, here's how we can make your dream happen. He said, Ed, my view of the HR function is that they are bureaucratic police only concerned with circling the wagons around their own centers of power. This is from a guy who's been in business for over 30 years, both as an entrepreneur himself and as an executive sitting in the C-suite. Again, it's only one person's view. I got more of them. And so when we think about this, here is someone who's right out saying, you know, I got a strategic plan, and I don't even want HR a part of it because they're going to get in my way. That's a perception problem that we have. And honestly, in many cases, we've earned it. And so we've got to figure out how we're going to break this. And that's what we're going to talk about the next hour. So we're going to go around a wheel here. And let's just start at the top. Let's talk about market trends for a moment. What types of market trends do we need to be in tune with as HR professionals and then work into our HR strategic plan?
What kind of skills are going to be required?
What kind of skills are going to be required when?
For wherever the next steps are. Like, for example, retirement community.
Okay.
So if, you know, we're seeing that what was assisted living today looks more like nursing, or, you know, what was assisted living 10 years ago, now it's borderline nursing.
Okay.
So, whereas a nurse aide that was used to working in assisted living 10 years ago, now we need somebody that's more accustomed to working with
Sure.
that,
Sure.
the skills that are needed.
We've got to be prognosticators. You guys know Groundhog Day, right? We have it in February. Where the groundhogs live that we follow. Do you know where they live? The ones that we pull out that tell us about the weather? They live in Pennsylvania. So I know all about being a prognosticator. Okay? We have to be prognosticators in HR. And you are exactly right. We have to be concerned with everyone. I keep talking about, oh, we got this talent shortage, we got this talent shortage. Okay, maybe we do and maybe we don't. Again, topic for another day. I kind of disagree with that. What I don't disagree with is that we're not always good at looking next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road and saying, how is our business model changing? What is in that strategic plan of our business? Where is it going? And what kind of skills is it going to take to get us there? You want to not only have a seat at the table, but have a true voice at the table? Those are the kind of discussions that you get into with your management team. Those are the kind of research tidbits that you need to do on your specific industries and bring that to your executive team and saying, hey folks, here's where our industries go. And here's how I think that's going to impact our people. And here's what I think we need to be doing about it. Get that discussion going, you'll have the voice at the table. In fact, they won't do anything without you. What other market trends do we need to be aware of in HR? Salary. Okay? So, in terms of what's going on in the marketplace, what would you consider to be your marketplace? How would you define that?
Our marketplace
Mhm.
is governmental,
Okay?
accounting.
Okay? So, you want to be concerned about other government agencies and what they're doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that needs to be part of it, yes.
Okay, what else?
Need to know technically how the salaries are going in our area, in the Baton Rouge area.
Okay.
And
So
nationally.
geographic.
To make sure that we are competitive in the market and that
Okay.
what is our strategy for our salary.
Okay. I'd say there's one thing missing. You hit all the things I would think of. Anyone know what I'm thinking of that you didn't mention?
I would thought about workforce readiness, like, or the trends of more employees working remote versus coming into.
Okay.
And how can you facilitate that or be prepared to meet that demand of these new employees in the future?
Okay, let's talk about it. Hold that thought. I want to talk about that. That's a good one. I think from the salary perspective, we get caught up in, I want to know what's going on in my industry, and I want to know specifically in my geography. Are you only competing with people in your industry, in your geography for talent? So you better be concerned with what's going on outside your industry with people that have skills that transfer to your industry. Okay? And I'll give you a perfect example of why, especially in government, this is key. I was doing some succession planning with a state housing authority. And we got to a couple positions in the authority that were really just kind of unique. And the challenge was they had 5 people in these positions, and all doing similar things. 4 of them were retirement age. After interviewing them and digging around, we found that the time frame to train someone up to take one of their positions was about 3 years. Okay, so start doing the math. 4 people out of 5 are retirement age, and it's a 3-year skill workup to get them fully on. So most people say, well, I guess we've got to hire from the outside. Yeah, okay, great. Problem is, the people with the skills on the outside were earning 20% more than what they could pay. Problem. Not only had this authority waited too long to do its succession planning, they didn't know what was going on in the outside world that was impacting their ability, in this case, to replace key talent. Not only were these people of retirement age, they had been there for 30 plus years. Okay? They were going to lose a ton of knowledge. Now, we were very fortunate. We were able to convince 3 of them to hang on, not retire immediately, train up some folks, and we got some folks trained up at about the 2-year mark, and then we took those folks down to part-time for that last year. So we got them into their retirement in a little bit creative way, but that's a market trend that we have to think about. Okay? Now let's talk about remote work. Thank you for bringing that up. I love remote work. How many of you love remote work? A couple of you. How many of you despise remote work? 1. Why do you despise it?
I don't know. I don't trust people.
Ah! So, earlier we said that HR tends to be kind of control freaky. Let's think about that for a moment. I hear that one a lot. I shook hands with LaMonica, and I hired her. Did I hire her to babysit her? Do I want to babysit her? Nope. I hired her to do a job. She had the skill set, the personality, the pizzazz. She had it all. That's why I hired her. I shouldn't have to worry about whether she's working or not. If she's,
The work gets done.
as long as the work gets done. Amen. I don't care whether the work gets done between 8 and 5, or midnight and 7, or 3 to 12, I mean, whatever it happens to be. Now, I get receptionist has to be there, machine operators, they got to be there, nurses got to, I get that. Not every single position is remote either. Okay? But it is a market trend. It's not going anywhere.
You have to get prepared for remote workers and their status, if they're an exempt status
Mhm.
or non-exempt. And
Exactly.
how are you going to implement to make sure the non-exempt employees are being paid correctly
Mhm.
and reporting overtime?
Sure.
So those are some trends you have to get prepared for.
Who says in the information age that our workers have to be under our roof? You guys are already using remote workers, whether you formally have remote workers or not. How many of you work with consultants outside your business? You trust them to do their work, right? You set milestones. You maybe pay them based on their milestones or whatever, but okay.
I work remote.
Thank you. I do too.
An HR person.
Yeah. I guarantee you that all of your businesses have a CPA that probably handles your taxes outside of the organization. It's a remote worker. Many of you probably have outside counsel. It's a remote worker. You have business relationships with these people. They are doing work for you, and you're paying them. Now, some people say, well, they're not employees. It's not the same. Sure it is. When you get that attorney's bill, how do you know they really spent how many hours on your case? How do you really know that your accountant spent how many hours doing your taxes? You don't. And my view is, if you don't trust them, fire them and get someone you do trust. Remote work is here to stay, and we're foolish if we don't embrace it where we can. Because the best and brightest are not always down the street. I work with the firm that handles my marketing. It's a 100% remote firm. I'm in Pennsylvania. The owner's in Massachusetts. One of the copywriters I work heavily with is in Philadelphia. So she's kind of sort of close to me. Another person I work with is in California. Another one's in Alaska. Wouldn't know it. They could all be down the street, down the office hall, the way we get things done. But we have to open our minds up. And based on some of the research I've been starting to do on the remote work phenomenon, it's not business owners that are against it. Who do you think's against it the most? It's us. Because we're control freaks. We have to get over ourselves feeling like we have to watch over her. We don't want to do that. You all said we don't want to do it. So we have to get out of that. Because we're going to miss out on talent if we don't start thinking about remote work. I have another client who's in the medical profession, and they're telling me they're having a hard time getting medical coders, and that really just kind of floored me. And so I started talking to the team about it, and they said, yeah, we just keep hearing these people want to work remotely. Great, let them. Oh, we can't do that. So why not? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're getting the transcripts, they're coding it all up, they're saying it's all electronic work, computer work anyway, right? Yeah. Well, the rest of our coders are here. So, well, why? Help me understand where the roadblock is. Do they have a computer? Do they have an internet connection? Can you establish something secure for them? Well, yeah. Okay, then hire the person. And let them work in their PJs at the kitchen table. What do you care? We're spending time on this market trends because I believe as a profession, we've ignored these kinds of things for way too long. I had another client tell me, she was so proud to tell me that they had 5% turnover. Great, I saved, talking to her about who was turning over. But I said, okay, well, why are you so proud? She says, oh, well, our industry average is 10%. I'm half the industry average. I said, why are you patting yourself on the back? The closest company in your industry is 100 miles away. Why is that number relevant? Tell me what turnover is down the street. at a business that's hiring the same kinds of people that you're hiring. That's a trend that we've got to have our finger on, okay? What other market trends do we need to have our finger on and be strategically thinking about and planning for? We got salary issues, we got remote work issues, we got talent, yeah.
Automation.
Okay.
It's putting a lot of people out of work.
Okay, so what jobs will be automated or robotized in the next couple years? And, I think back about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more, certainly before the Great Recession, and people, were running around crazy in HR because of the impending labor storm that was coming. There was going to be the big sucking sound as every baby boomer ever born was going to retire in one day, and the vacuum out the door. And what are we going to do? And maybe the Great Recession saved us from that, because they didn't retire as quick as we thought. Okay, we're starting to hear the same rumblings about the robots coming. Are robots going to take your job? For some people, perhaps. Think about, anyone here in transportation? Or have a transportation network that supports your business? Really? Wow, only a couple. Okay. Before I went and started my own practice, I spent many years at UPS. It's all drivers. What's going to happen with driverless vehicles? Do I need a driver in a tractor trailer who's going from one building to another and that's it? Maybe not once the technology's here, right? Now you might argue that your driver in the Browns who brings your Amazon packages to your door, we always need that guy, don't we? I don't know, there's drones coming, right? Might be just drones zipping around bringing you your packages. I don't know. Those are market trends that we have to think about. Someone's got to work on all that fancy equipment, which comes back to the skills. So if we know that from a market trend standpoint, we're going to get more automated, okay, so how's that going to change our business model in terms of the kind of people that we have to have? And where do we go find those people, and how do we start planting those seeds now? Any other market trends you want to talk about? Customers. Let's talk about that. I've got customer feedback, but let's talk about customers. Now this one I don't want you to raise your hands. I want you to think about the last time you spent time with someone on the front line, whatever that is for you. Maybe it's a nurse giving patient care. Maybe it's a sales rep out visiting contacts. Maybe it's that driver. Whatever it is. Think about the last time you spent time with that person. Have you ever spent time with that person? If it's not recently or if it's never, and you don't know what your customers want, how do you know the kind of people you need to hire to meet your customers' demands? And not just as it relates to customer service. What kind of products are your customers clamoring for? What kind of services do they want? And what are the kinds of people that are going to develop those new products that are cutting edge? And how can you get your hands on them? What are the people that can show up to work every day with a smile and knock out customer service in its tracks? So, again, we need to be prognosticators. We need to be thinking about these types of things if we want that strategic voice at the table. Now, again, we could probably spend an hour just talking about market trends we have to be aware of. But just these couple of things, think about all the tentacles and where those couple of topics go in terms of the things you need to plan for and think about getting into your HR strategic plan that'll govern where your department's going to go over the next several years. Let's take a look at key business metrics. What are some key business metrics that you think you need to measure in HR? Retention. Let's talk retention. Okay, hold on. Let's talk retention for one moment. That was the first one I heard. What do we have to be worried about with retention?
Focus on the section of employees that we may need.
Okay.
So that we have someone in the pipeline that can fill in that.
Okay, so where is our churn? Most companies have churn somewhere. Where is it and why? Can we stop it? Maybe and maybe not, right? I mean, depending on where your churn is, if it's really just nasty work, you may always have churn there. I get that. Okay? But have we looked at why we have churn? Organization I was working with didn't have a huge turnover problem. In fact, they told me they were so proud of their turnover being low. But I did notice on one shift it was higher than all the other shifts. Still wasn't out of this world, but it was higher. And I said, what's up with the little blip here on second shift? And it was only in one of their buildings. And HR said, don't know. What do you mean you don't know? It's a blip here. I've seen it. Why aren't you asking? We dug in. Again, the turnover was not high. It was only like 4%. That's really low, right? I mean, most people say, oh gosh, if I could have 4%, that'd be great. The problem is that 4% was comprised of one protected group. Is that a problem? Absolutely it is. We had to figure out what was going on there. So we can't always just pat ourselves on the back and say, well, you know, we've got a good turnover percentage, our retention's great, without saying, why is it where it is? If you have great retention, why? Someone mentioned they're in kind of retirement care. One of my retirement care clients was bragging about their retention rate. I said, well, let's look at this a little bit. The reason they have a great retention rate is that 3/4 of the workforce has been with them for 30 years, mostly female, all in their late 50s to early 60s. I said, what about the other 25%? Oh, that churns like mad. Okay, so you have, when you crunch all your numbers, you're weighting this group too much because they're all going to go in the next couple of years. And what's going to happen then with your turnover numbers? They're going to explode because you're seeing it as a microcosm with the small piece of that workforce. So when it comes to these key business metrics, again, I would challenge you to dig deeper. Ask him, play the 3-year-old game. Ask why a whole bunch of times until you get to, can't ask why anymore. You finally got to the answer. Why is it what it is? Okay, so retention. Where else? I heard a bunch of others. What else?
Cost of hire,
Cost of hires. Why do I care about cost of hire?
direct costs to the business.
Okay, direct cost of the business. If you were to sit in a boardroom and say, hey boss, our cost of hire is X, whatever that is. Do they care?
Eventually.
Eventually. Let's be storytellers. Let's get them to care right now. Hey boss, our cost to hire is $100. I don't know what it's, that's not I know, but it's $100 cost to hire. But we have turnover of X% in our most valuable function. So that cost to hire times all the people we're hiring is costing us this. And the reason that the bulk of these people are leaving is, I don't know, let's just say it's pay. I believe if we pony up an extra $1 an hour that's going to cost us this much on an annual basis, we can solve our turnover problem and also lower our cost to hire because we don't have to hire as many people. Paint the picture for them. Don't just give them the number. That way they care now. Not when it's getting so ugly that they're like, well, what's been going on? Why are we losing $20,000 a year just on how we hire and train people? Okay? We need to get good at storytelling in HR. Why are things the way they are instead of just saying the way they are? Why? Walk them down the path of what's going on behind these key business metrics. What's another key you need to work on or we need to be concerned with? We talked turnover, we talked retention, a little bit about salary and the market data.
Healthcare costs.
Healthcare costs, okay? It's an ugly one. It goes up every year. So the question is, what are we doing, if anything, to help control those costs? If we know that the broker is going to come back to us 30 days before renewal with our fee for the year and it's going up 20%, why are they doing that? Okay, claims, but why are they waiting until 30 days before? Too late for you to change. Now we know that they do this to us. Sorry if there's any brokers in the room, but it happens. I hear it all the time. So are we sitting back waiting on that to happen? Or are we trying to figure out a better solution? Now, you can go the opposite way too, okay? Client I'm working with right now, their people are complaining this is 3 years, they've changed brokers 3 times and benefit plans 3 times. That's too much, right? It's too much for HR, it's too much for the people. They can't keep up with it every year. Oh, my medicine was covered last year, now it's not covered this year. My husband's, oh, well, his wasn't covered before, his is covered now, so that's good. I mean, people get all mixed up, they don't know what's going on. And this comes back to communication. HR is getting beaten for this. Because the people just see it as, oh, you're just going out. No, we're trying to keep the costs down. But that's not being communicated. So this is a situation where, okay, maybe we got to ask our people what they want. Instead of us sitting behind closed doors and deciding what's best for our people, maybe we need to get out in front of it and bring some focus groups together and say, all right, folks, here's our deductible, here's our co-pays right now. This is where we think it's going to go next year. Is it important to you that we stick with our current provider and you're going to pay this much more? Or is it important that we keep the cost down and we can go over here? Or can we raise the deductible for you? Let's get some feedback from our people. Yeah, no hands, but think about when's the last time you asked your workers for feedback on your benefit plan? Or the only info that you have on that all the complaints you get about it? Again, that's reactive. But we also know that impacts our ability to attract key talent. What's in that whole perks package, not just our medical coverage, but all those perks. And are we getting the bang for our buck? If we're spending money places that we think are important. How many of you believe employee engagement is important? Do you spend money there? What do you spend it on?
Let's see.
Put it on the spot.
Well, first off, employee education.
Okay.
Send employees,
Okay, so training and development's a good one for engagement. I like that.
I guess benefits in general, other than like the health and things.
Okay.
We do employee parties.
Okay? How many of you have the employee party? Admit it.
a bunch.
Okay? And how many of you have to plan that employee party? Get out of the party planning business. I don't think any of you are party planners. Are you? Anyone certified party planner in here? You might be. You might have the experience, right? And I know you're saying, Ed, it's easier said than done. I just took an 8-person HR function and got them out of the party planning business. Because I sat down with the CEO and I said, you know what, you're complaining to me that HR is making your job difficult, for his exact words. I said, but yet you're expecting HR, all 8 people in there, to plan various employee events and manage them. From the big picnics to the pizza nights to everything in between. I said, do you not have an employee committee? He said, yeah, we call it the Awesome Action Committee or something like that. I said, are there employees on this committee? Well, sure. Give them the budget and tell them to plan the doggone stuff and get HR out of the room. And he looked at me and says, okay. But how often are we not willing to have that discussion because we're afraid that they're going to say no? Well, so what if they say no? The answer is no every time you don't ask, right? So you may as well try asking to get out of that business. But let's talk about that as a key business metric from an engagement standpoint. I want you to think about how much money you spend on that frilly stuff. The parties and the pizzas and the cupcakes and all that stuff. And I'm not saying it's bad, I just want you to think about this for a moment, okay? I had an organization that spent $40,000 a year on their annual company paycheck. It's a big number. Pretty decent sized organization, but it was a large number. And they had grown a lot over 30 years. When they first started, it was very much a family event. It was on their grounds. They brought a caterer in, pig roast, kids' games, you know, all that kind of typical fun stuff. But as they grew, and it's a shift work situation, right? It was too many people to coordinate. So they fell back into doing what a lot of us maybe do, and that's having it at the local amusement park. And that's all well and good. Everyone likes going. Up home, it's Hershey Park. You guys know Hershey bars, right? It's Hershey Park, okay? And it's a great place to go. And they've got a great catering area. And usually when you take your workforce there, you can pop in and get your burgers and dogs anytime throughout the course of the day. And, you know, maybe you see a coworker during the course of the day, you know, whatever. There was no more camaraderie with it. Well, of course, that gets expensive after a while. And so what they decided was, you know what? Employees are going to be free, but family members were going to ask employees to pay $5 for it. Is that a deal? I mean, you can't eat a burger and a dog and a soda at an amusement park for $5. So they're just trying to help defray the cost a little bit. You want to talk about backlash. People up in arms about this, okay? And I said, well, what percentage of your employees go? And they said only about 70%. So they're missing 30% of the workforce not going to this thing at all. I said, okay, of that 70%, how many of them have been griping now that oh gosh, at least half of them? I said, so let me get this straight. You're spending $40,000 to make 35% of your people truly happy. Why? What was the answer that a bunch of very smart C-suite people said to me?
Don't know. Don't know.
No, actually, it was a little better than that one. We've always had a company picnic, Ed. You're not in any way insinuating we should get rid of it, are you? And I sat there and I said, yeah, actually I am. Why would you keep spending that money? Now, this is a very profitable company, but I don't think anyone likes to throw money away. But I was trying to get them to say, this is a key business indicator. The way you engage your people, and they're telling you it's not working. Contrast that, same company gives its employees a gift certificate on their birthday to go down the street to the local bake shop to get a birthday cake. And it can be customized any way you want, any flavors you want, icings, it can be decorated. It doesn't even have to say happy birthday. You know, it could say happy anniversary or whatever. It could be for your kid, doesn't matter. $10 a head. Anyone want to guess what percentage of those gets used every year? 99. I think the rest probably get lost. What are those employees saying? Give us the simple things, okay? So I would say, take a look at where you're spending money, whether it's on the company picnic, on training and development, on your benefit package, whatever it is, and do a cost analysis to figure out whether it's actually paying for itself in some way, shape, or form. If not in hard dollars, at least in goodwill. After all, why do we do a company picnic? For goodwill, to give back, for employees to have a good time. And no, we can't make everybody happy. I get that. But I'd ask you to look at that. Because a lot of the metrics that we worry about in HR cost money to fix. How many of you, in terms of, would say that you do regular developmental type training for your management teams? Wow, only a couple. More. Okay, more. Okay. Good. Worried me there for a minute. I'd ask you to think about how much do you spend on that? And what are you getting in return? When I was still in-house HR director, I sent my team off to the SHRM conference. It's an expensive deal, right, for the SHRM conference. And they came back and they're telling me all the sessions they went to and all this stuff. I said, great, what are we going to do with it? I got blank stares. Like, wait a minute. I just sent 4 of you off to SHRM. You went to, and they're showing me their notes, so I know they actually went to the sessions. I said, okay, here's your homework, gang. You're going to go off, and you're going to figure out what you're going to do with all these good ideas, and I want each of you to come back with an action plan for next week. Because if it's all that great stuff, then let's do it here. Let's figure out how to make it happen. So what are we getting out of our training and development dollars? I know an organization that brings in big-time speakers to talk to their senior level management twice a year. Usually it's a leadership-related topic, and it's about a half day. And management loves it. They spend generally around $15,000 to bring a speaker in. So twice a year, it's 30 grand. So what are you getting out of it? You know, we really don't know. Our people seem to enjoy it. Well, good. So you spend $30,000 for your senior managers to be entertained. Pretty cool gig. Why don't you figure out what it is that you're going to spend $30,000 on that's going to get them to change their behavior and manage better, to be better leaders in your organization, and get your finger on that pulse. That is a key business metric. So again, just like with everything, we're going to go around the circle here, and we could probably do a whole breakout on any one of these things. But whatever the key business metrics are that are important in your industry, make sure you're attaching a dollar figure to it and figuring out how that dollar figure is impacting your business, so that you can tell the story to management to get the funds you need to fix it or reallot it to fix it. So let's keep moving on. Financial analysis. So we got into this a little bit just now, and that's why some of these build on one another. What do we need to know about finances as HR professionals? A lot. Give me one thing.
How does our business make money?
How does our business make money? Interesting. Well, gee, it's selling burgers. Is it? I don't know. I work with a local municipal airport. How does an airport make its money? Sorry?
Gate fees?
Gate fees?
Food,
Food?
consumption, parking.
Parking? Taxes? None of the above. Your average airport is much more a real estate entity than it is anything else. They don't own the Jamba Juices and the Mickey D's and Raising Cane's chicken fingers that are in their facilities. Those are tenants. And all your major airport hubs, there's mini hubs for UPS and for FedEx and various other air cargo. They're all tenants. They're paying money to do business there. And so this client and I were talking about, well, what really is your business model here? When you're recruiting people, what are you really? And so in our planning, we came back to, we're a real estate firm that just happens to have planes landing on our, on our property. But it's true, that's where the bulk of their money comes from. So that may seem like a very simple question. How do we earn our money? I ask you to really think about that. And where do you earn your money? Do you have loss leaders? Think about your average landscaping firm. You think they make a lot of money mowing yards? Where do they make their money? True landscaping, hardscaping, putting up retention walls, that kind of stuff. That's where the money is. Got a good friend. Owned his landscape business for 20 years. He says that I mow lawns as a loss leader. That's it. Gets me out. People say, hey, I see the shirts, and what else do you guys do? And their business is thriving. So ask yourself, what is the widget that we sell? What is the service that we put out there? And is that where we're really making our money or not? And once you figure that out, now you can come back around and say, okay, what are the trends around that? What are the key business indicators that I've got to put in place to manage my piece of how we make money? One of the best things, and I don't think I'm a rocket scientist, one of the best things I ever used to do when I was still in operations was just kind of walk around the operation. And I talked to so many HR people and said, I don't have time to do that. I said, how do you have time not to do that? I was able to head off so many problems by just walking around and seeing stuff and talking to people. And when they knew that I was going to be in at 3 o'clock in the morning on third shift, I got all the less voicemails because they knew every Tuesday they were going to see me. Management appreciated it because I was there on their time. And I started telling them, hey, you better go watch out what's going on over here in this belt because you got some things happening you better know about. And all of a sudden it was pretty cool that Ed was in, walking around. So again, from a financial picture, do we know what's going on in every phase of our business? Not just necessarily the big money makers. What costs us money? What are our big cost centers? What else with financial analysis do we need to be concerned about?
Payroll spend.
Okay? Why is it where it is? And in this day and age, you better go deeper than, oh, we got a $20 million payroll. You better start looking at gender inequity, okay? Inequity between folks of any different demographic in the same jobs. Okay? Payroll. Why is it where it is? And in this day and age, you better go deeper than, oh, we got a $20 million payroll. You better start looking at gender inequity, okay? Inequity between folks of any different demographic in the same jobs. I have some organizations that tell me, oh yeah, our pay's fine, and until you start digging, you start realizing, well, wait a minute. She just got a 3% increase and he got a 4%, but yet they both had the same rating on their performance review. They're both doing the same job, and they've both been here about the same amount of time. What's up with that? Well, they got two different supervisors. So, problem. Someone's got to keep an eye on those kind of things, right? So that's, again, it's not just our spend, it's where is it allotted, and what are we getting for our money? Let's come back to, I'm giving her pepperoni on her pizza every other Friday because she's a great worker for me. Are we getting the most out of that $20 million payroll? That should be our question. And if not, why not? All right, let's keep rolling here. Environmental changes. I'm not talking about global warming or global cooling or climate change there. I'm talking about what's going on outside your four walls. What do you have to be aware of?
Competition.
The competition. Thank you. Not only in your industry, but other folks with whom you compete for talent. What are they doing out there? I was with an accounting firm for a while, and this was back when firms really just started giving out smartphones as a, quote, perk of employment. And my recruiters would come back from job fairs and say, gosh, Ed, we're losing grads over here because they're giving them smartphones. And don't they understand that we don't give the smartphones out, but we're going to pay their bill for them. I said, so why aren't we giving them smartphones? I don't know. Well, give them the smartphone. Yeah, but Ed, it's a better deal if we pay their plan for them. I said, so what? If they want a smartphone, give it to them and don't pay the plan. If that's what your customer is telling you, give it to them. Don't try to bang your head against the wall educating someone on something they don't want. We know that the millennials and Gen Z want different things than the boomers and XY want, or than Gen X wanted. So why do we spend our time trying to, quote, educate them on the things that should be important to them? That's silliness. How about we listen to what they have to say and what's important to them, and then say, okay, what do we need to do to meet that criteria? I don't have a problem with the millennials. I have problems with people that complain about the millennials. And I'm not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer. Because they're changing the way we view work for the better. Again, we could talk all about the generations right now, but that is an environmental change. I still have people complain to me, and in fact, and I'm really hoping, I don't think I saw it on your agenda, but I speak at a lot of conferences, and invariably, there is a session on how to recruit millennials. Like, if you haven't figured that out, you missed the boat. I mean, what's the youngest millennial now? Late 20s or something? What are we talking about recruiting them for? They're already in the workforce. What are you doing about Gen Z? They're the ones you should be figuring out how you're going to recruit. We don't know how many of them there's going to be yet because they're not totally done being born. I don't think we've got an end to that generation yet. But stop, sorry, millennials, I'm telling you you're not important. You guys, you're here now. Some of you are in the room. Lots of you are in the room. You're making the decisions. You should know how to hire and engage yourselves. Let's get off that bandwagon. That's no longer an environmental change. Okay? And if we think we're going to employ a millennial from cradle to grave, ain't happening. Get over it. In fact, most studies say that the millennials and now Gen Z coming will change careers 3 times. Not jobs. Careers. That's an environmental change. Nothing we're going to do about it. No matter how much we stick our heads in the sand and say, you know, it ain't so, it ain't so. It's here. What are we going to do about it? What else is an environmental change?
Governmental laws and regulations.
Thank you. We are the keepers of all things regulatory in HR. So we have to stay up on it. And it changes constantly, right? It boggles my mind when I talk to organizations and they'll say, we got HR covered. So what do you mean by that? Oh, well, we got our controller handling HR. We got that person over in marketing, she handles HR. Like, wait a minute. I'm a full-time HR guy. I can't stay up on this stuff half the time. How is someone whose job it is that's not full-time in HR able to stay up on it? Okay? So yes, we have to spend some time in that. However, I will say this, I will plead with you. I get so disheartened when I talk to organizers of HR conferences and chapter presidents and everything, and I say, what is your most attended event of the year? Across the board, what do you think it is?
Holiday party.
No, not the holiday party.
Legislative change.
The legislative and legal update. Packs the house. Okay? I'm not saying that to mean that it's not important. I'm saying, really? That's what gets us out of our offices, to go listen to some attorneys tell us what the new laws are? We gotta be more strategic than that. We have to know it, but that shouldn't be where we're spending the bulk of our time. Because those laws don't tell us how to run our business. They're the constraints within which we have to run our business. All right, let's keep rolling here. What do we need to know about customer feedback?
If they like what we're doing.
Okay?
And if they like the people that are doing
That do it. Okay, anyone here in very customer-facing things like food, retail, hospitality, that kind of stuff? So Yelp, it's right there. I can look at Yelp, I can look at TripAdvisor, I can get on any one of those social media platforms and see exactly what's going on. What about the rest of us? How do we know about what's going on with our customers related to our people?
Surveys.
Okay, we can talk to our customers.
Sales.
Sales might be an indicator. How many of you are die-hard Apple people? Really, only a couple? Holy mackerel, I've never seen so few people. Okay, so if Apple doubled the price of the phones, would you still buy them?
Yeah.
A couple people would. A couple people would be like, yeah, because it's Apple. So I'd be careful that sales are the indicator. Okay? Okay, so you say it's a service. I'm not an Apple guy, so I don't know. All I know is you walk past any Apple store and it's like swarming with people. So something must be going on there, right? So we have to think about, what do our customers say to us? And more importantly, I think, what people in our workforce directly impact our customers? It may not be who you think they are. And where are my retail people? Who impacts the customer?
Front-facing people.
Who are typically
Lowest in the
Lowest
industry.
paid.
lowest in the industry. College kids,
College
high school kids.
Retirees,
Okay? Nothing wrong with any of these folks, right? They're part-time,
usually.
making just a hair above minimum wage, probably around $9 maybe.
$9, $10 an hour.
Okay. So you are banking your business on some college kid who's hung over half the time at $9 an hour. It's the business model, right? So what training, I want to put you on the spot, what training do we give that $9 an hour college kid who can make or break our business? Often they're the forgotten, sorry?
the cheapest you can get away with.
Okay? But think about that. We say, they're the part-timers, okay? But you go to her store long enough and get treated rudely enough, you ain't going there anymore, because that $9 an hour employee didn't take care of you. So when you think about the customer, That's where it intersects with HR. When I was in college, I worked the docks at UPS. Do you understand that your driver, that person wearing the brown uniform that shows up at your doorstep, has no control over whether you get your package on time or not? That driver can only deliver what's on their truck. If I was partying the night before and I threw your box on the wrong truck, you're not getting it today. And so it's the people that are working when the rest of us are sleeping that determine whether you get your box on time. Yet when I worked there as a college kid, no one ever told me, I understood kind of in some vague way that I had this power, but I never once saw a customer in that role. You have people like that. Any of you get one of the food delivery services, Blue Apron, Plated, any of those? Okay? So we get, I won't say the name, but we get one of them, and generally we're happy with it. We like the recipes, we like the food quality, but I'm ready to quit because for the 4th time in the last year I was missing an ingredient. And I'm not talking about, oh, they missed the oregano. I'm talking about I was supposed to have a pasta meal and the pasta wasn't in the box. That's a problem. I'm talking about I was supposed to have salmon and I got chicken. Okay, now, I'm okay with both of them, but this recipe is not going to go well with chicken. Who's impacting my customer experience? Some order picker in the warehouse. Now, I will say this particular service has great customer service. When I call and say, hey, it happened again, I get my refund. Do I want my refund? No, I want my food, okay? Especially because my wife and I enjoy cooking these meals together. The other night, it was a Friday night. I'm telling you, the cupboards were bare. And there's no pasta in the box. And I went I don't even have pasta in the cupboard. And so, think about the people that you have that are impacting your customer ultimately. And what do you need to do to invest in them so that they understand that they're driving your business? Whether they're in retail and they're actually selling your goods, or they're order pickers, or they're box loaders, or whatever those behind-the-scenes folks are doing for you. Generally speaking, they're usually the ones that are on the front line of things. Okay, so, sorry, I clicked one too fast. Competitor info, yes ma'am. Okay, so with competitor info, we've talked about a lot of that stuff. What goods and services are your competitors putting out there? Where are they finding people? How are they developing their people? Where are they from a salary perspective? Are they leading the market? If so, why? Why are they paying more than you are, maybe more than you can afford? You come to events like this, you can network and talk to each other about what each other's doing. I'm sure you're willing to share these stories. So let's start digging on that stuff, okay? Now these slides are going to be available, so there's some juicy stuff in here that I want you to take back with you for discussion, but I'm going to leave you with this thought, okay? Is that when you think about the things that we've talked about today, and you look at this list, I want you to think about whether you're going through any of these things right now in your company, or whether you should be going through some of these right now. Because as you go through the planning that we just talked about, looking at each one of those 6 segments, and doing a dive down into what you need to be concerned with each of those segments, you're going to start to uncover some of these items. And there becomes the action steps that come out of the strategic thinking. Oh, I need a succession plan because I got a bunch of people that are getting near retirement age and I don't have the internal capabilities to handle it. Oh, I'm lagging the market. Oh, my competitor just invested in a bunch of new machines, and it's the latest and greatest technology. Those are things we have to uncover. I guarantee you, if you do the deep dive on those 6 things, you come back to the board table and you start going down through and saying, hey boss, this is what I uncovered. Here's where I think we need to be going. Here's the financial imperative for it. If we don't do it, you will be invited back to that table each and every time. And we're not going to have to worry about whether we're relevant or not, because we will have made ourselves relevant. It can be done, because I'm seeing it happen. And it's happening in one-person HR shops and 20-person HR machines. And it's how they're interacting. And it comes down to being proactive. Going out, asking our management teams, what can I do for you? What are the biggest challenges that you have? What are the things that I can do to help you run your operation better? Asking for some of that honest feedback and working that back into your plan. It means you're going to have to get some thick skin, because you're probably going to hear some things that maybe you'd rather not hear. But it's so much better than ignoring the problem and us not being relevant. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your willingness to chat, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.